have to ask you, what are your plans for Republic City?
Public City.
I really hope not.
We're combining two of those to be able to model our school. We want to be able to create an entire 3D working model of our school so that if you were to walk into the principal's office, there may be an avatar of him, but at least there would be a video of him, and he would be describing his, relationship with the building. So kids who don't know our school actually go in there and do this. Now later on down the road, when we are going to make an architectural change in our school, we already have a 3D model built, and we can make some adaptations that we know. We said we want to move from the west area school to the east area school, what kinds of things are going to happen. And my kids in 3D gaming are now creating that model for us. They then, after they create the working model of the school, will create a game out of it. Don't let guts in this one up. But they will be able to create a virtual 3D environment. Who don't know our schools get there. My theory class is basically a non-digital class. And this is my last year's group where the kids were making all parts of the game. They go through all the theory, they understand the premise, the resources, the parameters, and they go through it all, and then they create the game. The next slide shows the kids with the finished product actually playing the game. All right, so that's a 2D game. Basically, they create board games. They think digitally, but they create something, in terms of board game. Okay, my 2D class, we use the Corona SDK and Lua. And there are three things that they've done so far. And the first screen, all that ball did was bounce around the screen randomly. And they thought this was the best thing they've ever seen. Okay? And then we have different screens to do, so they thought, wow, we can continue to go at this pace. It's really pretty cool. The next one they did, they had three balloons. Their job was to be able to create a linear impulse stream to keep them touching the screen. They were able to keep Happy away from Angry. Because when Angry touched Happy, Happy disappeared. All right? So then, we put all those together, and they're excited to do all of that. And one of my kids came up with the next slide, which is, he took the goalie movement from game one. So the goalie moves back and forth on the x-axis. He took the puck flip from game two, which was the balloon game. And he did the scoring mechanism, and the word goal appears when the ball goes through the goal. And that's what they do. So I can tell them how to create game 1, 2, and 3, and then they, at the apex of Bloom's taxonomy, are analyzing, synthesizing, and creating something brand new. That's my 2D game issue. The value of video game education, I have to go through all of this. Obviously, they're built on learning principles. The best one for me is that they provide an environment for authentic and relevant assessment. Next slide on this. And the assessment, by definition, games are inherently assessments. You make a choice and you see what happens afterwards. That's an assessment. The students have demonstrated critical thinking to be able to do that. They go through the game, they make a choice. If that choice doesn't work out, the next time they go through there, they have to remember that that choice didn't work and then keep going forward. And those are play games we use daily. All right, so all of this is built on formative assessment opportunities. It's also teaching a habit of mind, which is called perseverance. It isn't a matter that you failed. The matter is that you didn't quit. All right, so you can fail as many times as you want in a simulated environment and still get back up off the floor and keep going. So that's why games are great for risk-taking kids, and they'll make the mistake without necessarily a life consequence, but they're still learning along the way. I did a piece on Dewey last year. Dewey is one of the things he told us is impossible. The deal is that I can't, my kids are freshmen, I can't tell them what the world's going to be like 9 years down the road from now when they graduate college. I can't tell them what the world's going to be like 2 days from now. Right? So I can't prepare them for any unique set of circumstances. I have to give them skills that they'll continue to build. Touching the screen, they were able to keep Happy away from Angry. Because when Angry touched Happy, Happy disappeared. All right? So then, we put all those together, and they're excited to do all of that. And one of my kids came up with the next slide, which is, he took the goalie movement from game 1. So the goalie moves back and forth on the x-axis. He took the puck flip from game 2, which was the balloon game. and it's a scoring mechanism, and the word goal appears when the ball goes through the goal. And that's what they do. So I can tell them how to create game 1, 2, and 3, and then they, at the apex of Bloom's taxonomy, are analyzing, synthesizing, and creating something brand new. That's what I teach game. The value of video game education output for all of this, obviously, they're built on learning principles. The best one for me is that they provide an environment for authentic and relevant assessment. Go to the next slide on this. And the assessment, by definition, games are inherently assessments. You make a choice and you see what happens afterwards. That's an assessment. The students have demonstrated critical thinking to be able to do that. They go through the game, they make a choice. If that choice doesn't work out, the next time they go through there, they have to remember that that choice didn't work and then keep going forward. And those of us who play games, we use daily. All right, so all of this is built on formative assessment opportunities. It's also teaching a habit of mind, which is called perseverance. It isn't a matter that you failed. The matter is that you didn't quit. All right, so you can fail as many times as you want in a simulated environment and still get back up off the floor and keep going. So that's why games are great for risk-taking kids, and they'll make the mistake without necessarily a life consequence, but they're still learning along the way. I did a piece on Dewey last year. Dewey is one of the things he told us is it's impossible. The deal is that I can't, my kids are freshmen, I can't tell them what the world's going to be like 9 years down the road from now when they graduate college. I can't tell them what the world's going to be like 2 days from now. Right? So I can't prepare them for any unique set of circumstances. I have to give them skills that they'll continue to build so that when that unique circumstance comes to them, they'll know how to negotiate. And Dewey said that as well. That's pretty much what it says there. He also said that teachers are doing too much. We're giving too much information. And that goes back to the item in your hand, the phone. You know, the world's at the fingertips. We need to be able to teach them how to discern valid and accurate information from invalid, accurate, or inaccurate information. And so therefore, too much of it's coming from us. When my kids are playing games, that's all of them. You know, I can give them pieces, but then they put them all together. And the last one from Dewey was that an education must be conceived as a continuing reconstruction of experience. Isn't that a game? You go through the game and you are constantly restructuring your experience with every step along the way. The amazing part about it is that he said all of that in 1897. We're just about getting the message. We're just about getting it. All right, and certainly games and education can put us further ahead. So that when that unique circumstance comes to them, they'll know how to negotiate. And Dewey said that as well. That's pretty much what it says there. He also said that teachers are doing too much. We're giving too much information. And that goes back to the item in your hand, the phone. You know, the world's at the fingertips. We need to be able to teach them how to discern valid and accurate information from invalid, accurate, or inaccurate information. And so therefore, too much of it's coming from us. When my kids are playing games, that's all of them. You know, I can give them pieces, but then they put them all together. And the last one from Dewey was that an education must be conceived as a continuing reconstruction of experience. Isn't that a game? You go through the game and you are constantly restructuring your experience with every step along the way. The amazing part about it is that he said all of that in 1897. We're just about getting the message. We're just about getting it. All right, and certainly games and education can put us further ahead.
Thanks. 1897. It's amazing when you really think about how long it's now. Along the same lines that Sue works, she's building games. I want to play that hockey game, by the way. I know you do too. Yeah, I know. But along those lines, Claudio and Liza from the Institute of Play here in New York are going to be speaking next about what their programs do and some of the things they work on with kids as well. So I'm going to need you to drive, and when you guys want to drive, and you guys do. It's creative musical chairs up here. You're going to drive? All right.
here is a game with very fluid rules and hooks, right? There's no necessarily external goals and constraints of traditional games. So you can think Legos and not Monopoly, right? So players sort of approach these systems differently when they enter in. And we'll talk a little bit more. So we're going to share 2 games with you that we've been working with a lot, and then we're going to talk about these 4 qualities that we really feel make sandbox games so powerful. Oh, and then some examples for you.
Okay. So the first example we want to talk about is obviously Minecraft. So Minecraft is kind of the king of sandbox games design. And for those of you not familiar with it, it's basically a game where you enter this world which is all made of blocks, and you can explore the world in any way you want, and you can take those blocks from the world and then use them and reconfigure them in space to build whatever your imagination can come up with, and that can be represented with blocks. So people can build like villages and cities. They can build replicas of like monuments, like huge structures, up to like crazy stuff like animals, dragons, anything that can be a block based can be represented in Minecraft. So we wanted to kind of harness that power because we feel that as players of Minecraft, also as designers and educators, Minecraft is really, really creative. It's a familiar space for kids and students. It's really, really powerful as a modeling environment, and it's increasingly social. And the way we were exploring the first idea of using Minecraft was around the idea of the concept of slope. And so usually in a math classroom with slope, you maybe give the kids like manipulatives and have them graph different slopes to determine like the ratio between the y and the x. But we wanted to go a step further than that and give the kids a more experiential understanding of slope. So we know that like when you go, for example, on a roller coaster, you feel like when you go up, that's a positive slope in math, and you feel like, oh, I'm like preparing for something, I'm decelerating. If you go down, it's like exciting, it's like you're progressing more speed. If you are static, so no slope, like zero slope, you're just progressing at the same speed for every step in time. If you're falling down, hopefully not completely down, that's like no slope. So we wanted to kind of get the idea of like feeling of slope, and we came up with this idea of basically having the kids as a goal, build a roller coaster in Minecraft with a partner, and then an actual roller coaster that can work, they can ride, and label also in every step of the path the slope for that segment. So the implementation of this was basically we had a server in the classroom with 25 kids and the teacher and a game designer on the server with them. They could talk to each other and actually work together in the space. And the results were kind of amazing. And there should be a video here. Let's see. Okay. I would just try one. This would be the keynote and exported to PowerPoint. I really want you to see the video.
Hello, welcome to our Minecraft roller coaster. This roller coaster was created by myself, Sam, and Carlos. So as soon as we come in here, you'll notice that we have our start with a zero slope. So you can't really get the Minecraft right now because it's glitching out of it. But as we move up, you'll notice that we have positive 1 slope. This is 1/1 as it increases at a 45-degree angle positively, making this a positive 1 slope. So as we move up, it's the same deal, except this time we have it expand over 2 and then increase by 1, making this half slope. And then as we come over here, same applies. Once again, getting less steep and less steep as we come to the steep part. And right here, we have a positive 3rd slope as it moves over 3 in length and 1 in height. So then we move down here, and you'll notice the -2 slope. This goes down 2 in height, or depth rather, and 1 in length. And so as it happens, that is a 2/1 in negatives, making this a -2. So along across here, we have our 0 slope. The 0 slope has been improved just for a thrill factor. After we love it.
I really wanted to show you a little bit, like it's kind of long, but you get the idea. So with that activity, the kids were able to produce, and you may think like that was like a very kind of like a kid that was really experienced in Minecraft to start with, and also very experienced with the idea of slope. But basically, every group in the classroom was able, with very degrees of success, build their own roller coaster and label the slopes. So it can be really generalized, and it's one of the examples of how we use sandbox in the school. Let's now talk about the next one.
Okay, so we were working with a 7th grade history and English teacher to develop a game around using literary elements and helping students practice those. So we decided that sort of an open-ended collaborative storytelling game might be a good direction to head in. So we decided to develop a game called Story Weavers, sort of like based around Exquisite Corpse. So you start basically, the rules are super simple. It's developed in Keynote, so at Quest we actually use a lot of technology that everybody uses every day and use those as platforms to develop games. So you start by basically writing, so every student has a computer, and each student starts by writing one card, the setting card. You can only write the setting, that's it. And there are prompt cards that you can use, for instance. So you don't feel too overwhelmed if you can't think of something right away. So you can be square, Mars, Javits Center, bedroom, whatever. And then once you're done, you pass. Then you add the protagonist card, then the antagonist, and then moving on to conflict resolution, sensory details, whatever, what have you, until you reach climax and resolution. So by the end of this, at one table with 4 students, you have 4 stories. They're about 9 sentences long, and these things range from the hilarious to like this poignant, right? From like 13 and 12-year-olds. And it's really amazing the stories that they come up with. They're actually having an open mic right now for students to share their stories on Quest. So this also, you can't really see it, but the best sentence that I've ever heard came out of this. So Ariana grabbed the poisonous apple and took it to her room. She was making an evil plan to live happily ever after. Right? Amazing. So through this, through this, students really get to see literary elements as these components of a greater system that are interacting with each other. And they understand how to use them because they're creating their own. So like they're sort of constructing their own, right? And it's collaborative, so there's not this barrier to entry of like, I have to make something amazing that's just me, right? So not only Story Weavers, the great thing about this is they're just these prompt cards, right? They're the components. And then the students construct their own sentences that act as sort of like the more for the game. So it's super flexible, and we've been able to mod this for lots of classes and lots of grades. So this is a game that's sort of been exploding around Quest. So we have History Weavers, Dystopia Weavers, Horror Weavers, Superhero Weavers, and soon to come, Memory Weavers. We've also had a 10th grade class that has made their own version of this. So they made their own cards around the hero's journey. So they identify the elements of a hero's journey that they think are the most powerful and the most important to that narrative. And then they make component cards, aptly called Journey Weavers. So now Claudia is going to talk a little bit about these 4 qualities that make sandbox games powerful for us.
So we tend to use a lot of sandbox games, not only because, as Jesse was saying, they're familiar to the kids, but also because we observe a certain pattern in them. They share a set of qualities that make them really, really useful for learning. The first one is accessibility. So they provide multiple entry points to the experience. There's not just one way to play, but you can play in any way you want to play. They're open and they're moddable. That's really important for the kids, but also it's really important for us as designers. We can take that system and make something with it that can reach the learning goals that we want to reach. The second is the idea of agency. So in a sandbox game, you're not just following the rules that the game designers have set up for you, but you're more exploring the system and the combination of the systems. So you're basically a free agent in the world, able to take his own decisions and test things out. You can, especially important, you can change the game world without asking for permission. And that's like in general for, we feel like in education. Like if you want to affect even like a small change in the system, you have to, I don't know, wait 10 years up to when you get your PhD, and then maybe you can try. Well, at least in a sandbox environment, you can immediately try to do something and see what happens, and that's super empowering. And finally, you have fluent components to tinker with and construct your own game. From that, also flexibility arises. So because you're figuring things out at your own pace, you're basically adapting the game experience to your own level of knowledge and interest. And because of that, you're able to make the experience much more flexible and adaptable to you. And the final outcome that we see from many sandbox games is that of how the game fades into the background and becomes a creative tool. And you can see that in Portal, in like Team Fortress, in Minecraft. Every good, successful sandbox game becomes a tool for self and artistic expression, and that's a really, really powerful feature of sandbox games. And if you have more questions, those are the emails, and thank you for listening. And thank you for listening.
Next questions? Go ahead. You can just speak up. I can hear you.
Yes, question and a comment. I'm a tech consultant from the Bahamas, and in the early 90s, the private schools in the Bahamas mandated point-and-click adventure games in the educational market countrywide. And there was a very large supply in those point-and-click adventure games, specifically the Common San Diego. And they were so successful that children would request those by name. Now, I'm a tech consultant as of late, and parents come to me and ask me, what solutions can they find in the mainstream market that are comparable? And unfortunately, between the gaming press, I really have to tell you as of late that there are no equivalents that I've been able to see in the mainstream. Now that I know about the DreamWorks driving me, I'll be suggesting that. But that's my comment. Now, my question. Is there a genre of game such that it was similar to the point-and-click games of the 90s that you can depend upon to release, constantly release educational games? Is there a comparable genre of game as there was in the point-and-click era that you have to do?
That's it. Does anybody have a comment they want to add? Go ahead.
Well, I'll only answer it from our point of view. There were two companies that produced those games. There was Knowledge Venture, our company, and Learning Company above by Mattel. They did Common San Diego, we did the chief competitor to that game. So they're gone, and we're the only company really delivering games in that genre that are tied to core education. So there's a big difference. I totally agree. Minecraft is a great game. Gives a lot of creativity. Jumpstart and all of our games are much more focused on the educational value. So they really tie directly in. So that's exactly what we're doing. So DreamWorks hasn't given us just one brand. There are 5 movies that are coming out that will all have educational games around them. So it's going to be a long-standing, and we haven't announced it yet, but we've also signed up one of the largest sports league. So we'll also provide educational games inside the sports genre. So we're going all in back into kind of having that genre, especially from a mobile perspective.
I think we all want to come down to the Bahamas and teach. Actually, that's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually had the answer for our fellow from the Bahamas. There's an educational game called The Time Tribe. Unfortunately, I've forgotten who created it, but it is a web-based point-and-click adventure game made in HTML. They ran a Kickstarter some while back. It's very successful. So yeah, you'll want to look at The Time Tribe. I cannot remember who made it, but we're based out of Westchester.
Did you say it was called The Time Tribe?
The Time Tribe.
Time Tribe. So Google that.
Yeah, it's like a historically based educational game.
Rebecca already has a review on Kids Views.
We have a really good review of Time Tribe on our site. By a girl, I might add. We love to get girl tech reviews.
Awesome. Go ahead. Sure. Do you want to comment on that, Justin?
A lot of times you bring in your own stuff anyway, because they don't provide you with anything. Like you're in the Bronx, I'm in North, believe me, I feel you, we're in the same boat. A lot of times you'll request stuff and they'll be like, well, that's not really learning, is it? And then you have to come up with like this long diatribe and why it is and statistics, because I always want to see stuff like that. But you're never going to get full support from districts that are like, well, we're failing, so let's give all this money to all these people to come in and give us like 18 different ways out, and none of them work. So if you're going to do it on your own, it's like I said last year, like you just have to do it. Like just bring in your own stuff, and if they have a problem with it, be like, look, let me try it out because of the situation that we're in, and if it works, let's try to work something in the future. And if not, I mean, there really is no if not. If you have something that the kids are passionate about, it's going to work out anyway. So unfortunately, unless you write a grant to a company that deals with that kind of stuff and have it kind of hand delivered to your classrooms, if not, it's going to go to the district, and then who knows where it's going to go. Yeah, but you have to kind of take the reins on that stuff, because if your district's anything like mine, no one's going to help you when it comes to like video game comic book learning, because they think it's silly. Meanwhile, you know, you sit next to a millionaire and you're like, he didn't think it was silly, and look where he's been. So a lot of that stuff is like trial and error. Like you really got to get your feet in there, and then if it works out, you're like, see, I told you so. Which is the greatest thing in the world a teacher can say to their administration.
I'd also add one thing: support the tablet programs. Tablet programs are going to give power to the teacher in the classroom.
One of the good things about panels like this too is, and I always recommend this, is everybody get business cards at the end, because if you're in that position, I'm sure like Rebecca said, we'll have the key ways to get involved, get kids involved. Claudio and Liza are right here too in New York as well, in the students' classroom too. I mean, just the sharing of knowledge is a big part of it too. Is that this mic is really, I don't know if you guys getting an echo, because I'm getting killed. Sorry. The sharing of knowledge continues to grow more and more. And the more you see things in cloud systems and the more access people have, the easier it's going to be to get them to your kids, even especially on lower levels of technology. And I agree with David. I mean, the tablet program in the schools is amazing. The more you push for it, it's a hard fight, as Justin said. But I think you'll see results. And for now, the best thing you can do is bring the systems in for the kids to learn using this touch screen. There's a lot of questions.
Every month at UMT, there's an iPad class workshop. It's free, it's bigger. So it's back, like, sort of like suck up, and sometimes they'll send you a laptop for a couple of months. You can try it. So this one, go to the website, Apple iPad class, so it's not, and people pay you for Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Big fan of math lessons, by the way.
Thank you.
I know a big selling point in your games is, you know, the marketability of it, and like tricked out dragon races and such. But is it difficult to kind of, you know, carry the scientific method that you're teaching to gamers initially over to those sort of visceral gameplay experiences? Like, will they learn Benelli's principle?
Oh yeah,
Through scientific method?
Yeah, so that's the hard part of this whole process. The first mass market review of School of Dragons was, this is unbelievable art, better than Skyrim, all of it all the way down. But some folks will have a problem with education. It's a little bit in your face. So when you get to the mass market, you're going to constantly face that battle, and we just have to accept that that's not our market. You know, we're gonna sit in this other side of the market. You know, we serve out billions of math questions every month. We put out more math questions than probably any other resource out there in the country. So we just look at our gameplay in session. When you're averaging 70 minutes every session that a kid puts in, that's a lot of education. So we're delivering a lot of education, but you gotta put enough entertainment. So the whole pitch, the reason why DreamWorks did this, because they believe this is an underserved market, and an underserved market opportunity from a business perspective, that if you really go hard after it, you're consistent, and you take a long-term view of it, and you invest in the biggest brand. So How to Train Your Dragon is their tentpole franchise. They're betting their whole company on that. It has 2 movies to come with $150 million marketing campaigns. It's the #1 show on Cartoon Network. Live action. They're going direct to China. I mean, this is a big franchise for the next 7 years. So we're betting ahead of time as opposed to after the fact with a franchise that's already kind of done. So this is as good an investment as is ever going to be given into this kind of genre. And we're gonna, we've got 200 people working on it. That's a lot of people for a game. I mean, that's comparable to any game out there. So today it's just at square one. And a year from now, it's going to be the best game out there.
Go ahead, in the back.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. Two questions. One for Justin. Do you find that the children, even the troubled kids that you teach, that their frustration towards learning kind of dissipates if you transition from the video game to a real-world application or classroom applications?
So far, I've seen, yeah, because they draw such a real divider between learning and real world that they don't think the one applies to the other. Like, it's really weird. As soon as you start to bridge those gaps, they start to go, I don't know, it's the same thing. And you're like, oh my God, like, what happened? Like, can I go and punch your old teachers in the face? Because sometimes that's what I feel like. Because a lot of it is like, hey, I've been teaching for 25 years, here's a ditto. I literally still highlight the date off it and give it back to you. So a lot of it is because the teacher's not passionate, therefore the kid's not going to be passionate. Like, that doesn't matter what you're teaching. But when you give them something like video games, when you give them something like comic books, and they see that happening in the world around them, they now have a renewed sense of educational vigor. Because it's like, oh yeah, I do see this every day. You mean I can do this for a living? Because they've been in situations where teachers are like, you can't do that for a living. Nobody does that for a living. I'm like, have you been on the internet? Like, have you seen what kind of money's going through stuff like that? So when you do kind of show that to them, that barrier goes away. And they start to feel like they're not such a bad kid for wanting to play a video game, because predominantly that's what the message is. So if you start to open that up a little bit, it demystifies that whole, like, well, you can't have one or the other. I'm like, yes. Nowadays, you can have your cake and eat it too, because it's digital. It'll just keep respawning back in the same spot.
Hey, just one more question for everybody involved. To evoke different educational policy changes, even at a local, state, or federal level, do you guys find it difficult to have guidelines set, or even qualitative measures of effectiveness set, where you can take this up to the proper channel to say, hey, these are effective means of teaching, and take it more seriously, as opposed to like a side project, as it seems like discussion.
Might be able to answer that.
Well, I'm a little bit in a unique situation because we're out in private school and we don't really care about any of that. But I will say that data speaks, okay? And anybody who wears a shirt and tie, data speaks. So if you can produce the data that says this works, then you have a foot in the door.
I know something, I'm just going to quick just a little bit. So in my other life, I'm a public education advocate. And, we have actually a huge problem with sometimes, my kids are here in public school in New York City, a lot of money has been spent on iPads in the classroom, which I call the treadmill in the bedroom. You buy a treadmill and you hang your dry cleaning on it. Well, teachers all got iPads to the tune of $40,000 and had no idea what to do with it, because it's just a tool, right? You need professional development. So I think the bigger problem sometimes isn't convincing schools that you need the technology, it's convincing the schools that they need to have a program behind the technology. And that's where the proof is, and that's what's, I think, really difficult. And so sometimes it's all just, teachers are so resourceful, so even if they're using something like KidBlog, or like us, like kids use, where they're just showing engagement in kids who are previously not engaged, and just like you were saying before, sometimes you can have great hard data, and they all love data, and they all love test scores, God knows, but Common Core, you're not going to see it on the New York State test, that a kid had an iPad for 20 minutes when the kid is going to OT because he still can't hold a pencil. Like, there's such a huge disparity between what's going on in the classroom and then this idea that technology can just fix it. So I think what you have to do is actually get your parent body. I think the parents are always the best resource. If you can get parents behind change and parents to help fund change, which is difficult, but it's got to be about getting the teachers on board, because it's just useless if you just stick tech in the classroom with teachers who don't want it and don't know how to use it.
Just to jump in on that point, one of the things that we do is I meet with teachers, every teacher, 2 days a week, for ongoing, continuing professional development. Trying, even if it's just web tool technology, trying to get rid of we're one-to-ones out of the city, and the worst thing that happens is those out of the season not used. So again, 2 days a week, we meet every single teacher. I go into teacher's classroom by invitation, and when you're finished, doing your lessons, I can say, okay, while you were doing this, did you think about better engagement, using technology to do this? And I agree that just technology to a teacher. Yeah, I know it's difficult area. Also, I want to say this. I'm doing a study for a future dissertation on the college preparation of teachers. And the NCES latest stats say that 81% of teachers who are in their first to third year of teaching are getting their professional development from somewhere other than their own schools. They're going out and educating independently. I'm not against independent learning, but my question is why aren't the colleges and universities better preparing our teachers to say yes?
Thank you.
And then we have smart boards in our school that teachers use as overhead projectors. I'm like, they're like, well, my standards are up there. I was like, you know it does all this other cool crap, right? And they're like, yeah, but they only want to see me using it. Like, that's a lot of the answer. Like, the teacher's just like, well, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to put something up on the board. I'm like, you are underutilizing such an awesome tool that does all this cool crap, and you don't care as long as you don't get in trouble for it. Like, and it's a lot of that. Like, there's no training. Instead, we have someone sending us like this like DOS-based program called NovaNet that looks like Oregon Trail. Like, I'm expecting like little Timmy to dive into Fury at some point. But there's nothing interactive. And again, if the teacher doesn't know how to use it, they're going to just hand it to the kid and go, I don't know, you use it. And then they learn more about it than you do. So there needs to be a passion for your job as well. Like, if you don't want to advance yourself as a teacher, you're forever going to be like, I'm just going to use it for this, and I'm okay with that.
Real quick, we have time for one more question, but really quickly, working at ETS is just starting. I mean, we're responsible for the SAT with College Board, and we're just starting to bridge the gaps of digital environments for learning and research. And it's amazing, as Sue will tell you too, it's amazing how many barriers we hit from the research community of what you can't, take statistics or metrics from a game. And I'm like, really? You guys do it at Jumpstart. I know EA does it, and I know Activision does it as well. So it's the gap is coming together, I think, ultimately, and I think it's great that we're right at the apex of it. Go ahead, one last question. We got it.
Segueing into iPad apps, our company I work for, Teachly, we just released an app called Animal Adventure for K through second grade. Teaches strategies in math, and we just released it. It's free right now, so I would love to just dish out these postcards.
Sure. I mean,
if you know kids or teachers or if you have kids, no students, whatever, just spread the word. We're really trying to get this into classrooms. We're working on an update to progress monitor classrooms and students and what they're doing. So that would be released soon. So come get with me.
Hey Garrett, I want to follow up your one point. Sure. You don't mind just to close it out? Because we're putting an advisory panel together, and it's the head of faculty at Columbia that teaches the teacher program in the summer. It's a very established program. MIT Media Lab, Harvard, a NASA scientist. And it is to address just that one issue. We have so much data. We're an analytics company. We fired all the marketing people when we got there. We're numbers guys. And the first thing we did was build an analytics platform, because that tells you more how to build a game and what the kids actually do than all the predictions and all that. So we were very focused on the numbers, but we can't get it out there because nobody in the community cares about that data from a game, to your point. Yeah. You just can't get, even though we have billions, I could tell you how the kids in the Bronx at 5 years old probably have 30 to 40% of those kids playing it over time. But we can't get that data out. So we're doing this advisory panel, and again, it just comes back to DreamWorks. They're willing to spend the dollars and the commitment to put their name behind it so we can get the data out. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
I actually think that's great, because like I said, from the research standpoint, it is that connection that needs to be made. I've been to the MIT Media Lab, and it's probably the coolest place on the planet. I'd still rather fly a dragon there.
Well, that's why that came on.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, listen, unfortunately, we have to cut things down because we're at our full time. I can't thank you enough for coming here. And honestly, part of these panels is really a resource gathering. So feel free to step right outside and talk to the panelists. We have a few minutes afterwards. Exchange business cards, exchange ideas, really get talking to each other, because it's amazing that at New York Comic Con, when I can't wait to go to the Adventure Time panel on Sunday with my son, we can actually learn something together here and drive education together. So thanks so much for attending. I'd love to thank the panelists. Thanks so much for coming.
are you